Hey Hershey's, I hope you are all well. I am praying for each of you, praying that you stay healthy, that you stay safe, that you stay even occupied and not so bored in this new season that we find ourselves in, this season of being quarantined and not going out and being confined mostly to our homes. And just these unknown times that we live in. I'm trying to figure out this technology thing, trying to figure out what church will look like in the coming weeks. So for now, you're propped up by a couple books and a bag of carrots, and that is my video stand for lack of anything else. And besides, this is honestly probably my 15th take so far because I don't know how to talk to a phone, talk to a camera without anybody else here. And so this portion is rather awkward and new, and this is not something that they teach me in seminary or that I've learned even in Bible college. So this is not my thing, my cup of tea. But again, I wanted to connect at some level. We can't connect face to face, obviously, or we can't connect one to another and in close proximity. But trying to figure out, even again in this new season, how we might be able to connect in a different way. And right up front, I want to say there's four goals that I have, four things that I really want to focus on for us as a church in this time. And one, in my job, I want to continue to preach and teach in some fashion. So again, we have our Sunday services that we'll be doing here in the coming weeks. And again, cards on the table. In my email, I said 2 weeks, but really that's minimum. And I know some churches have already canceled 8 weeks out. So for the next 8 weeks, they know that they're not going to have services in their building. And really a lot of, even some of these churches are saying that's just minimum. We don't know, again, how far out this is going to go. Weeks, months. Again, we could be looking well into the summer. So how do I then offer you teaching materials? How do I preach? How do we as a church even connect then if it goes longer than 2 weeks, if it goes longer than 8 weeks? How can we continue to be a church with one another, church to our community? How can we continue to be the body and the hands and the feet of Christ in this time? So again, I wanted to continue to preach and teach, and then part of that is another thing that I want to do. One of my other goals is to resource you. And so some of that has already come via even the 16 chapters of the 16 books that I sent you yesterday about fear and anxiety. Because I know a lot of people around, a lot of us even, are faced with some fear and anxiety. Again, in this season of unknown, in this season when we're faced with sometimes what it feels like imminent doom in the current reality that we're in. And so offering you resources in some fashion, offering you things to give us, each of us, wise counsel. And again, times of unknown, wise counsel as we interact with even neighbor, even if it might be from a distance. How do we encourage? How do we counsel our neighbor that is also facing the same things we're facing? How do we continue to stand firm and live with a peace that surpasses understanding in the midst of crisis, in the midst of pandemic? And so resource is another thing that I want to do. And my third goal is to communicate. And so I don't think that I can necessarily over communicate in this time. And so I want to communicate. So even in this last week, you've gotten a ton of emails from me. I think just about one every day. And so really, again, my goal is to just continue that, to continue to communicate, to continue to let you know that myself and also leadership team and even board is working together, trying to figure out, again, what church looks like, to figure out what this means for us, to figure out what God would have for Hershey's, again, in this specific time, in this specific place, in this specific season. So look for the continual communication, and some of you might think it's overkill, but for me, I don't think it is. So I'm going to continue to do that, continue to communicate with all of you. And then my fourth goal in all of this is to continue to pray for you, to continue to recognize our spiritual poverty, recognize our spiritual need, and the depths of it, the gravity of it in this, again, in this time of coronavirus spreading rapidly and around and among us. And so just to pray for you, pray for your health, pray for your where you are at in our community. Continue to pray how we can even be the hands and feet of Christ apart in our very local context. How can we have love for neighbor? And love for neighbor might mean not going out of your house. That could very well be an aspect, a way that we love our neighbors. Not spreading the germs, not spreading the virus, not going out of our house and potentially endangering others. But also for those that feel healthy and are healthy and do not have any symptoms or have been quarantined for a while and know they haven't come into contact with anybody that has had the virus, how can you even maybe be hands and feet of Christ, love your neighbor in a more practical way? So can we run errands for our neighbor? Can we pick up groceries for our neighbor? Can we, do physical things? We can go get a bag of groceries that our neighbor might need if they're quarantined and just drop it off outside their door. No need to have physical contact in any way, but just, again, ideas that we might have about how we can, again, be the hands and feet of Christ in this new way of living. And so praying for you in that as well. And so, all that to say is this approach of church currently in the short term and the weeks to come, if not months to come, is trying to figure out what it looks like for us. A new way of doing church in this 21st century crazy world. It was interesting. We had a district leaders meeting last night among LMC district, our Peckway district here. And J.W. Sprunger, who is current interim at Parksburg Mennonite, said something interesting. He said, for so long we've spent money on brick and mortar, and this is kind of a wake-up call for us where we might need to be spending money elsewhere. So instead of the brick and mortar, it might be the technology. Can we resource our members? Can we resource the people of our church with, iPads or laptops? If we can't be together physically, how can we be together at least technologically? And so it was kind of a fascinating statement, a fascinating thing to say from J.W. Sprunger that kind of got the gears turning, the bell, and just a different way again of thinking about how we might do church. And so one of my questions that I have for each of you is maybe some of your suggestions about how we might do it. One of the ways that we've been looking into is maybe some sort of YouTube video. And so again, as not this Sunday, but the coming Sundays approach, offering some sort of order of service. So, like a prayer to begin, some songs that we can sing together, a sermon, and something to close, a closing song or a closing prayer, or a closing reading, or whatever. And one of the ways we were thinking about that is kind of maybe having, that sort of flow, that sort of order of service in email form. And if there's videos, just kind of link videos to YouTube. And so that would be, pushed out to all of you, sent out to all of you Friday or Saturday or one of those days, maybe even Sunday morning. And you could click on those things or go through that service at your own leisure, at your own, whenever you find time. But another thing we were thinking, a lot of, even what some of the Peckway leaders were talking about last night and some of the other church leaders in our area are doing is a Facebook Live. They're doing a Facebook Live broadcast. And I'm not on Facebook much. I don't use Facebook much. I'm not exactly sure how Facebook Live even works. I don't even know who among you has Facebook. But I was wondering if that might be a possibility for us. The advantage of a Facebook Live is that we can all tune in together and also kind of be together even in the comments as we just kind of, again, interacting with a video in some fashion. And so we can even do prayer requests. Hey, church. So one of the sanctifying experiences of technology, as we all know from Sunday mornings at times, is with our handheld mics that the batteries die. And that's just what happened to my phone. So it's just contributing to this staggered ramblings that I'm continuing to go on here. But yeah, Facebook Live, advantage is if we can't be together physically, we can at least be together virtually. And so those are kind of the two things that we're thinking about, either with Facebook Live or YouTube. And the advantage of Facebook Live is that that video doesn't disappear even if you can't be there in real time. So for whatever reason, if you can't be there at, let's say, 10 a.m. when it airs, when it goes live, you can at least catch the video later on. It saves the video. It's not like it just disappears into thin air. So you can still watch it and even interact with or see the comments. I think, again, I don't know Facebook Live real well. I think you can interact with or see the comments that are taking place in real time. So yeah, those are the two things that we're thinking about as of now. If you have any other ideas or comments or questions, feel free to email, call, or text, or whatever. I'd love to hear them. Something else we're also thinking about, depending on how long this whole thing plays out, is some sort of small group capacity thing. So we're thinking about Zoom conferencing, which is just video conferencing with one another. So having some sort of relation in that way. So thinking about setting up Zoom for us as a church. And it's not something that you need to download. All you would need to do is click on an invite, click on a link, and it would automatically populate you right into the Zoom meeting. I think the only requirement might be that you have a camera. And I'm not even sure that's a requirement. Again, I'm not sure how all these things work. We're so new to all of this technology. So I think that's all I want to say. This video is already way too long. It's much longer than I intended, and so my apologies for that. Just want to let you know that, again, I'm praying for you, and I'm grateful for all of you, and I hope you all continue to stay safe, continue to stay healthy, to stay well. So I love you, and I'll talk to you soon.